Pickle trying to get started today because he wanted to wear a certain type of, I don't know. I thought he should have put a hat on. He said his hair was fine.
No, it's fine.
And then I was like, well, do we need to coordinate colors? We don't, but I wanted to wear black. Then I see he came out with the black. I'm like, oh, we're really matchy. And then it was like, he looked like he was sitting higher. I was sitting low. I'm like, this was
the chair
thing.
and the adjustment, and it's just like
because
a
you're used to doing this
itself.
by yourself. But remember, now we're doing this together.
Yeah, because I still don't go.
It's because you got to make room. I know the camera's up there, but I was looking at you because we just got to talk. You told me just be normal. Right, I'm looking at wall, the camera, lights. Right. It's a lot happening.
That behind the scenes stuff.
It's a lot happening.
So we're getting acclimated to this environment, and we're doing what we do. So we're so glad that you all.
But hello, everybody. Is it a good evening? Right?
It's good evening. Hello.
I don't even know what time it is at this point.
Yeah. We don't say times and dates and all that stuff in case people replay. That's protocol. You just
for
say
lives.
hello.
You just say hello. Okay. Well, hello. Hi.
So here's something funny. If y'all know the last show, we ended on the whole Charlie Brown fiasco. So when I tell y'all thank you, because so many people responded and sent me all kind of graphics that's showing the name of the Peanuts game. So I appreciate that. I don't have my Peanuts cup tonight. I'm actually drinking Starbucks tonight. I have Starbucks. Somebody changed. I know. Sean's not
gonna
like
Starbucks make you feel?
Okay,
let's talk about that for just a moment before we dive into finding joy in the unexpected.
We went through this before,
talk about
and
joy
I know
unexpected.
Some saints believe because the little lady on it is the devil. However, I ain't gonna get into that.
Yeah, you talking about her face? Like
no, that's this one.
Which one?
I
don't do Starbucks, y'all. I'm just
it's
like coffee.
Y'all know this all this so, but it's some things that
like
don't
symbolism.
Yeah, they're like it's the goddess of I forget her name, but they won't do it. So I mean,
you're not supposed to say that on social media, huh? They gonna block you,
but it's fine.
Don't they say put you in jail or something?
Yeah, whatever. But that's why we're on YouTube too. So if we
so
do
he's
it,
drinking coffee. Now we don't.
No. It's not coffee. It's not coffee.
What's the splash?
It's chai latte with a shot.
Shot of what?
Of espresso.
What's
and
espresso?
When I tell you,
wait, what is espresso?
I have the slightest clue what espresso is, but I know it keeps me pumped for the day. Y'all, I do this so often now, I threw away my Mega Man vitamins. I don't even take them no more because they were supposed to be giving me energy and they don't work. But so anyway, I'm not even a coffee drinker, but or tea or whatever. But when I tried this thing, one of my clients brought it to me at work and she said, here, try this. And I'm like, no, I don't do no coffee and all that kind of stuff. Y'all, this thing was like, it was so good. It was like forbidden. You'd almost stuff you're not supposed to. It was so good. And so that's kind of like my, what they call it, guilty pleasure now, because I'm at like maybe a cup or two every week now, maybe 1 or 2 cups every week. So, I mean, it's really good. And I'm enjoying that. So, Valerie, she always joking me now because in the morning after I drop the kids, I'm doing a Starbucks run. Yes, I'm one of them people now. I'm gonna raise my hand. I'm one of them people now. Like, go to the window and all that stuff. So,
but he holds the cup all different now. I was like, who are you now? Because I was.
Yeah, I mean, she riding in the car just watching me. You know, you like driving and you see people like watch you talk. Y'all, I'm like drinking and I'm like, I said, why are you watching me?
Well, because
and it's like
I said,
look, Sean, you gonna get a kick out of this. She was watching me with like disgust, like
no.
Oh my God! Then she's talking, you just so bougie when you drinking the coffee. Now I said, how you drink coffee bougie? And I mean, like all this stuff, I'm getting critiqued on drinking out of the cup. I don't even understand where that comes from.
Listen, it's a whole thing. I'm gonna see if I can record it.
All I know is
I
good.
just had to look like, is he this person now?
He
got real prim and proper, like his little hand and his little motion, his little lip.
I'm like, the coffee is hot. It's hot. You can't just go. But anyway, that's like my little thing now. That's my little thing. So I'm enjoying it. Don't mean to offend the Saints, but as long as they got one on the corner, I'm gonna be in the line.
He has the app now.
I'm gonna be in the line. I have the app.
All of the things.
All that. I get the points. I am that guy.
You're that guy.
I'm that guy
now.
now.
Okay.
So
All right.
now all I
Fair.
need is a Tesla and a pair of khakis and a gingham print shirt, and I'll fit in well. So there we are with that. So yeah, you told everybody about me. So hopefully you're glad.
Praise God.
Y'all, we just want to catch you up on those things. Look, this is what happened in our life, and that's what our channel is about. All things pertain to life and godliness, because we need to incorporate that and make these things work. So look, tonight we're going to be talking about finding joy in unexpected places, events. Just unexpected. And it really speaks to how, on a serious note, how you go through things, and we've heard the phrase how life deals us hands that are seemingly unfair. And what do you do with those things? And that's what we want to speak to tonight. What do you do in those times when life seems unfair? You're a believer. You've said the prayer. You went to church. You did all that time. And it's so easy for us sometimes when things happen like that, we write off our resume to God, now remember, you remember I was in church early here. And it really has nothing to do with that, because life happens to us all, whether you're saved or unsaved, black, white, green, polka dot, life just happens. And I'm going to say that phrase that we hate.
No. Life be life. Oh my gosh.
We so sick of that. We got a list of words that we're gonna excommunicate and cross out forever.
You know what? It just is like, it's just okay, I'm not gonna go there. It's just trends though. But it's interesting because when you hear it, it's like, y'all don't wear the word.
Yeah,
like,
everybody
oh my gosh, it's enough. It's enough.
Even we don't know what it means. Life be life and life be life and life be life. Ooh, stop it. But anyway,
we're not here.
That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And so last week I kind of told a little of my story and just some challenges that I'm experiencing now. And I want to set this up in this way. By no way am I saying this to gain sympathy and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, that's not why I'm saying this. Why I'm
people
sharing.
People are going to be sympathetic because you're a likable person.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't want to.
But I know you're not doing this to gain anything from other than you want to inspire people to understand how to respond, though. With joy in the unexpected.
How to respond with joy in the unexpected. And it's okay. And one of the things we talked about last week is like how we as believers is sometimes people look at us funny because we are fearful of things, or we go through levels of anxiety, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a normal emotional response. To say that is to say, if you stump your toe on something, like you're gonna go, because I love Jesus. It don't hurt because the hurt is not of God. And this is one of the things that we want to crush with this platform. Now, we love the Lord with all our heart, but we want to bring a practical balance to things to a lot of Christian people, that it's okay. Just don't stay there.
Don't stay there.
My journey started in April. April of this year. April of this year, but I have been having complications, and I'm going to keep this rated, what is it, PG-13?
No, PG-13 got a little bit of.
Okay, well, we ain't gonna do that.
Just PG.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it PG.
Just PG.
Come to the one after dark, and then I get into the yucky details. So
especially nowadays, PG-13 is like, you might as well call that R-rated at this point. But
and then also, I guess, well, I mean, y'all ain't gonna get like Val. Y'all know me ain't gonna get like that, but just going in the details. Anywho, back to the story. So April, I was having some difficulties with some signs that I noticed in my body. And so my primary doctor sent me out to have a prostate exam. And one of the things that was alarming, because I didn't know anything about that stuff, Valerie didn't either, we didn't know anything about those things. And the PSA, for those that are familiar with this, the PSA count kept inclining. It kept going up, increasing. It kept each time, because I'm also a diabetic. So I was doing pretty good with my A1C. So my visits were every 6 months. So I'm going to the doctor regular. I'm doing my medication like I'm supposed to. I'm trying to eat like I'm supposed to, doing all the things that I felt, that would give way to a healthy life. So my doctor, she goes, your levels are increasing. So what I want to do, I want to send you to check that out. So I go to a urologist and didn't think anything of it. So they were like, yeah, and he took some uh x-rays and different things of that nature.
Biopsy?
No, not the
Oh,
biopsy. We
not
didn't
the
get to the
biopsy.
biopsy
Okay.
yet. We took x-rays and all that kind of thing. He's like, yeah, your prostate is very enlarged. And at that time, like I said, I didn't know anything. I knew I had a prostate. I knew that because um I knew that, but I didn't know all the ramification of what that meant. I had heard about prostate things, but I didn't, be honest, I didn't even consider it. Like, okay, it's this, and we'll get through it. So, anywho, went through that, and he said, "What I want to do, I want to take a biopsy." So I went through the series of a biopsy. I'm like, okay, what does this mean? What is it of a biopsy? So he said, well, one or two things with the size of your prostate, either you have enlarged prostate or it could possibly be cancerous. So now y'all know anytime we hear the big C word, whether we hear nothing else, literally, it's like everything around me stopped. And I was stuck right there. That's all I heard. I'm like, what? Okay, so had a little anxiety when we went through. So Val, I'm telling her, this is what's happening. And so she's there to kind of help and navigate through this. So we go through the necessary channels to get the biopsy scheduled. So they get the biopsy. Now, here's what's funny. Maybe the end of last year or something like that, because I told Val this, the Lord had spoken to me, said, Dre, you're getting ready to go through some things, but you're going to be all right. And I told her this. I didn't know what it was. And with respect, I honestly thought, because we lost her dad, we lost Pop. So I thought that was it. I'm like, okay. But I didn't expect this. So long story short, we got the biopsy back. And well, they were like, if I'm saying this right, I don't know if Miss Vicky's on here, but she'll know. They said there were 4 quadrants, I think it was, that they took samples from, and 3 out of the 4 showed sign of cancer. So me being the guy I am, we have portals. And if now medical is totally different. You do the portals and you go and check your stuff. So when I saw the email said that they sent the results for the biopsy, I immediately went there, y'all. I immediately went there. Well, it was a lot of medical jargon. I don't know what the heck it was. I'm like, what is all this stuff and this, that, and all? So me, y'all know me. I've got Chat GPT on my computer. So I copied and I pasted in Chat GPT. I said, explain these terminologies if I were I think I said a 3rd grader or something. So anyway, it explained, and what was suspected was then factually true. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so when I went to go back to the doctor with Val, I already kind of knew, but if I could be totally honest, in that space, and y'all, I'm not being super spiritual with this, I'm telling you the honest God's truth. I started to get full of anxiety, but I remember the word of the Lord.
You knew. Okay.
Yeah, and I know some people won't like that because that sounds super spiritual, but I can only tell my story the way it happened to me.
Yeah, it's true.
And I was like, so even though I didn't know what to expect, what to go through, because the biopsy was painful for me, I still had, okay, God, what does this look like? What does this mean? So when we go to the appointment for the doctor to confirm it, y'all, wait for this. So we're in there. Guy comes in because they had, it seemed like thousands of patients in there. So they was coming in and put us in the room. We sat there for a while. He goes, yeah, Mr. Neal, biopsy, you do have prostate cancer. And he says this, y'all, but this one won't kill you right away.
Right away.
This what this man told me. He said, yeah, but this is not the kind that kill you right away. So I literally chuckled and I looked at Val and she was like, just like going through a moment, but I was sitting there and it's almost like, are you hearing what this guy is saying? So he offered me these treatment options. He said, because it was progressing slow, he said it was slow progressing, you could, we could just watch it. Well, that was a heck to the no, the way Whitney Houston would say it. Then he said, number 2, we could do radiation, or 3, we could do the surgery. So then I enter into this journey where I'm dealing with folk, and I'm sharing it with a minimum amount of people, because I'm a person, when I deal with things, I don't like to be smothered with things. And I know people were concerned. So let me fast forward. We'll get to those details at another time, because I want to get into the meat of what we're talking about. So long story short, I went through those things, and there was a day that I had a day. There was a day I had a day that I'm like, wow, this is really happening. And I'm gonna tell y'all what brought me to the point of that, because I was good until I had appointment after an appointment after an appointments after what they call consultations and all this stuff. It's like my life was now going to doctor's visits, stuff that I had seen happen to other people. This past week, I had literally 5 appointments back to back, and that's a lot. And it began to touch me, if you will, in a way that I'm like, this is for real. And then a part of me start to question and ask God, why? You know, if I could be transparent, I was like, why? You know, I've served this and all this and that. And that's why I told you all in the beginning, it's real, because that's where we go to first. We question God, like, if it's something that we did wrong to have this result, and it's not. We didn't do anything. So our topic tonight is finding joy in the unexpected. So I had to take a step back and begin to look at all the benefits and enjoy life for what it is now. Now, there's a lot more in their details, but I don't want to take up too more time with the story, because I want us to get into the meat of what we want to talk about tonight. So it doesn't matter what we're dealt with. We have to look through, and I always say this, those that know me, and I always have a optimistic way of looking at things, and I'll say, when life gives us like a trashy situation, you got to rumble through the rubbish to find something good, because there's something good in there.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that came out of there's a certain awareness now that I'm letting other men know, because especially as Black men, we've heard this said, and we want to run in the ground, but we as Black men, we don't go to the doctor. Thank God they caught the situation early.
Yeah.
And I didn't even tell y'all about the bone scan, because they had to see if it had spread. When I tell you this has been a journey, but I had to, in order to keep my spirits up and continue to trust in God, I had to accept the ugly reality. However you want to do this, however you're going to work this out, God, it's okay with me. You know what I'm saying?
Part of that, let me just pause here, because you said a mouthful in sharing your story. And I'm sure everybody on here can appreciate you being open, because I believe that even through this, there's going to be some hope that you're providing to people that are listening. Because there's a lot of probably unexpected results that people have experienced, unexpected circumstances. Life is just dealing some things that we probably didn't expect in this season. I mean, just life itself. Most of us wouldn't have thought probably a couple years ago that we as a world, well, prophetically, yes, but let's just say in the natural, that some of the things we're experiencing, like, wow, this is a lot of unexpectancy here. Some of us didn't even prepare really to start feeling and experiencing this. No different than this diagnosis. Like he saw it before, I guess, watching the portal, the my chart. And then for me to sit in there and hear that, it took me for a moment. I didn't get overly emotional. I literally just stayed quiet for a minute. And to be honest, I looked at him to look at his response and his reaction. And then I started getting curious, like, how are you not falling apart to hear that? You know what I mean? Because in my mind, I begin to think, like, most of us would probably start thinking is where we don't feel, or we don't think this person deserves it. You understand? But I come to encourage you to know, and this is something my mother-in-law said, Mama, we were talking one day, and she said, it's funny when people say that, because God doesn't deal it based on whether you deserve it, don't deserve it. A lot of time it's the ones, how that's that whole term, good things happen to bad people, or bad things happen to good people. And it's like, good or bad, we're all his children. And so really nobody deserves to be died. I'm not saying there's a time to do that. Don't get deep and spiritual. What I'm saying is, we would all feel our loved ones, nobody deserved any of the bad things that happened to any of us, whether good, bad, or indifferent. Because if the truth be told, we've all erred, and we all probably could say we deserved something. Sometimes we label that. That's a whole nother topic. My point is, though, is it was unexpected. And my first thought was like, well, I'm looking at him and he's sitting there like, okay. I'm like, okay. Like, what's next? And I think that's one of the things he asked. So, like, what do I, okay, so now that we've identified that's all right, that's on the table. What's the next step? I'm still stuck on just this man just walked in here and said this. And then you saying it's not one that's gonna kill you right away. I'm like, well,
right
when does
away.
it kill you? Like, I'm sure, like, do you have a date?
And
Like,
then he left.
and then he walked out. I'm like, well, well, wow, that was pretty like that. Talk about just be straight up, right? And so then my second thought was, wow, like for all this person is doing, God, like this what you're gonna take them through? He's like, yeah. And then as we begin to pray, and again, this is just we are, we're believers, so we're gonna have to tie God in all seriousness here. The Lord began to unfold some things. It's like I already showed him the end. And the end is this is not unto death. So that's already been established. So now when the Lord has already revealed the end, which a lot of times we know the end of a thing, but it's a process that we have to be, that we start getting a little answer like, but you're going to have to go through some things to get there. That's the part. And it's like, okay, all right. So having to keep that in mind through all of this, it's like, how do you find joy and upliftingness? Upliftedness, is that even a word? I don't know.
It'll work.
It'll work. Whatever. Y'all
upliftedness.
However, to find joy in something like this, because now we're the ones being tested. And it's interesting when you can encourage other people in this. Be like, have joy, pray for comfort. And then when it's you, it's like, well, wait a minute. And so it was definitely a different response and reaction. There was times I was, even now as we're going through this, is sometimes I'm like, God, really? Now you also have to think, if I can just insert this is coming off of probably just a few months after having to experience, burying my father. So for those of my father passed away this year in April. And it happened right after I came off of doing a women's experience event. High time in all things, just me empowering, giving my all, pieces of me this year at the end. Literally that weekend closed out on Saturday. And, I had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So like right after, a few days later is when my father passed. And all I can think is, wow, God, that was a heavy blow. So you talk about unexpected, because it wasn't, he had some health challenges, but this was not an expected death, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, oh, this is the day. So, and then from there leading into this, and yet and still trying to serve and to show up and to be and to do all the things. And grief is a real thing, and we'll talk about that later. But even in still the requirement to say, hey, we've still got to trust God. And believe God is who he is through all of this, and still try to find true joy in this.
And those things,
that's tough.
Those things really make you appreciate and identify what the joy is. You know what I'm saying? Because before, I was talking to a good friend of mine today, and he said something that really stuck with me. In just how we so casually approach things because it's in its abundant. I would have never thought, and like somebody say XYZ, that's going to happen. But now there's a different appreciation I have for life and things, period. And it's brings us to a place now where there's deficit. You can identify and appreciate the joy. What is joy? And how joy differs from happiness. You know what I'm saying? Like joy is different from happiness. It's much different from happiness, because happiness is usually attached to things. You're happy when you go to your favorite beach. You're happy when you eat your favorite food. That makes me happy. It's an emotion that's emoted. But joy is from the inward part of you. Joy says that I've learned, like Paul say, whether base about, I've learned to be what? Content. And that's what joy is, that stability in leaning on Christ, God, for real, as they say, because there are some things that can mush out an appreciation out of you that if you had not gone through that, you wouldn't understand and experience that joy. And I'm reminded of the scripture in James that says, count it all joy when you fall into diversities of temptations. And it's talking about, it's not necessarily talking about temptations like being tempted with sin, but it's talking about experiences, struggles, life all of those things, and it tells us to count it joy, because we have to, and I know it's a hard lesson, but we have to consider, hey, and this is a practical application of it. Okay, this happened, but I got this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I was telling Valerie this, and I hope this is blessing somebody tonight, because even in those situations, I thank God we have insurance.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how you find joy in those unexpected places. You have to muster up enough of faith and energy, realistically and practically, to say, God's got my back, even though this is not a favorable condition of where I want to be right now, but I'm still considering these things as joy. I'm so joyous that I'm in my right mind. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really seeing God's hand in these situations and how God works. And it's in those moments that he shows up strong. You know, that's the hard part about this journey. And I think sometimes as believer, that's the tough part about trying to demonstrate that. And that it doesn't feel, because I'll be honest, you all, when we were talking about prepping for this topic, and one of the things we were like, well, we want to share our personal stories. I told him, I said, I'm struggling with finding a story. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I know I've been through, Lord knows I've been through a lot, you know, in all of my years in life. The part that I was stuck on is finding the joy in it. I was like, it wasn't no joy in none of that. It just wasn't. Now I know that now in it, now I'm talking about finding joy in it, during it, in the unexpected. Now after the outcome, and eventually through healing, and eventually through, you know, time that heals, you know, my heart or whatever. Then I can look back and say, God, it was good that I was afflicted. I understand that, because a lot of who I am today is because of what I've had to experience and go through, right? If you don't experience nothing, a lot of times that's not birthing the things that need to be birthed out of any of us. So I get that part. But I promise you, I said, I don't know about that, George. I said, this topic. So I had to I said, you got to lead into this, because I have to be 100% honest. I said, and then as we're talking through, God is reminding me of those moments, like through it all, even still, because I've shown up and I've been able to encourage somebody that's been going through either something similar or the same. Even through my dad's passing, so many people like, well, why are you here at church? Or why, you know, do you want more time off of work and this and that? And I said, not that I don't want to deal properly through the grief. Don't get it twisted or wrong. It's just, I knew in these times, it's just how I needed to process, because at the end of the day, I said, God, I know you're real, and I know that you give life and you take life. So it's yours to do. You understand? And I also know he's in a better place. So then in that, I had to start reflecting on not so much as what I feel I lost, but what it was to gain in terms of my dad, in terms of my faith, in terms of what sometimes we're praying about a thing and it doesn't happen the way it really is an answered prayer. It's just this it is an answered prayer. It just probably didn't happen the way we did. And so that's, you know, so that in itself is what I find contentment in. And if I'm choosing God through all of this, I got to stay consistent to choosing him, even in the time where it doesn't seem favorable. Where it may seem like it hurts. That's a difference, I believe, when it comes to joy and happiness, because one thing, God gives joy because it's one of the fruit.
Right, exactly.
Not happiness. And I think about, if you had to use the term in like, how do we use joy? Like, I have joy.
Right.
Meaning I have it. I've internalized it. It's part of me. Most people don't say I have happiness. They said
that made me happy.
Like I feel happy. So you can see that
that's good.
To have joy and to feel happiness is different, because happiness typically is contingent upon the circumstance, and it can switch because it's more emotional. Whereas joy is very independent to the circumstance. Like it just, regardless of, if you got joy and you demonstrate the fruit, that's a fruit you got. No different than long suffering and some of the other ones we hate. And it's funny because most people frown and get nervous about hearing long suffering that they need to possess as a fruit, but don't think about joy. Because to say I have joy and I'm going to demonstrate his fruit of joy, that means do good, bad, ugly, and different. If you have it, you have it. When it's hard, you have to keep it. You don't pass it back and say, God, I don't want this fruit. But if you're going to demonstrate him, that means enjoy. And so interesting that most people think, oh, because joy is always when I'm just, no, that's just being happy in the moment. To have joy is long lasting. That state of being like, this is who I am in spite of.
And they coexist together.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
for
the
sure.
beauty about it. And you made an excellent point. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So they go hand in hand. So when we experience it, and I thought about, you know, we sing this song, You Are My Strength. You know, we sing those things, but I don't think sometimes we really realize, except when crises come, that's when those things like like they say, it hit different now.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
the joy of the Lord is my strength, because
Mhm.
you know, every breaking, quaking moment of your life when you're truly dealing with those things, to respond with a joyful attitude is a decision.
It is a
It's a
decision.
decision you make.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we both I made that 100% known. I'm not isolating. I always make a joke, y'all, about the fudge blanket in the corner, and yeah, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And I share with Val, I say, God forbid, I'm not wanting to check out,
Right.
but if that's God's will, what can I do? What can I do? So what I'm doing is preparing the best way I can, but being optimistic that God is going to do what he's going to do. And that's what the Hebrew
Yeah.
boys did. They
Yeah.
believe God, you know, they believe God. So we have to, I think this is such a good topic. It's so refreshing because it's a state of mind.
It is a state of mind.
It's a state of
It's a state
mind.
of
It's a
mind.
state of being that you have to make a decision consciously. And see, this is why, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I got to say it the way I shuffle the cards. This is why we can't have plastic belief,
Oh yeah.
because it's in these times when
I think that's where we were talking about, like when I said people with false humility.
yeah,
Like, I just know the Lord's. If you don't believe that and have
Yeah.
faith, then don't speak
Yeah.
it. But we're speaking from a place of true
Right.
faith. I'm not
Mhm.
saying you don't, but it is interesting. And I was honest to say in the
Honest,
beginning,
that's it. To say where
joy
you are.
wasn't there. However, God is teaching me, and He showed me through this process of how to be able to allow myself to have
Right.
what they call like a mindset that condemn, you know, we were talking about this, a joyful mindset.
Right.
Like,
Joyful
what does that
mindset.
mean? And what do I choose to reflect on? What do I know about our God that we serve? And what do I know about being able to work through these type of circumstances and see it to the end? Because I also will say, sometimes in these things, it's how you speak concerning it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and how you show up.
Absolutely.
And I gotta say, man, I admire you for how you have been. I mean, just beyond joy, you've just truly have exemplified such a level of faith through this, and that's a tough one. But you've been consistent like that throughout. I got to give that to you as well. I said you are definitely better than me, but you've taught me in this space, because I tell you, sometimes we've had people look and just call or just talk to him like, how are you feeling? And like, in other words, like, you all right? Shouldn't you kind of be breaking down, like stowing away? You
Like
want to
some
give
people
up the
think I should get
church
my
and
head checked. Like, you
stop
all
doing
right?
work and just give up. And it's like, but God already showed them the end.
Yeah.
And so why choose that? It's like,
Right.
there's still life to live. I said, and you're going through the process, which anyhow, we know what God is doing through that. We've already experienced, well, we already
Absolutely.
talked about that. It's just sometimes it's interesting when you're leading and you're saying you're demonstrating Christ, people are watching. And I told him, I said, people are watching how you're responding in a time of crises and unexpected. And you're showing and demonstrating really what God expects us to show, even in a time like this, and which is why favor is going to be upon you. And he's already turning that thing around. And so we already know the end is that you will continue to live. And so we find hope and joy in that promise. And so excited for that.
I want to go back to what you said, because I think that is really paramount in the conversation. When you were talking about, and I laughed when you said that, you're like, I don't feel no joy, none of that stuff. And I snicker, but here's the thing. What we want to really put up front to everybody that's listening, and if you're not in that place, then maybe it's for your friend. You are honest with God.
Yeah.
You are honest. And that's what you're talking, this plastic stuff where we know we're not that place. You know what your heart is hurt. God ain't upset with you. And that's what's aggravating to me, because our peers in church put us in bondage because we feel bad because we don't understand the situation.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. The Lord said, ask me. He tells us that. So you can go to him and we can vent. That's what relationship is. So when you were in that place, God understood the sentiments of your heart because you were being sincere. So what do? He grants you grace to answer those questions. Even if it was this way it's got to be, whether you like it or not, he still will respond in a way. So we have to understand in those times that we must be honest with God. We got to be honest with him and not, oh no, all is well, I'm good. And I think that's what, I'm not a super Christian. You know, people have things just like the next person, but this is just how I choose to deal with things. And anybody in my close circle, y'all know, I call myself a solutionist. You don't get but 3 days to murmur and wallow in that. Then we need to get up and find what we're gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I get that from the story of David. He inquired of the Lord, Lord, let this baby live. The Lord said, nah, baby gonna die already past it. Why are we gonna mope around now? Let's get up and proceed and flow in life, because what happened is in those places that we open the door to depression.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's not those that are listening and that will watch the replay. I don't know who is on the other side of this, but I will say this, because we got a really good response, by the way, on the last one. You can't stay in that place. It's okay to travel, but if you're gonna go through, go through. Go through. You can't stay there because it prohibits you from I can't. I will have to do a separate live to tell you all of my concerns, even with this, as a man in my manhood. I'll just leave that at there. There's a lot of things that are going to be very different, you know. So that in itself, so it's like a ball of things, but I chose to approach it in that manner and find joy in those unexpected places. You know, I endeavored to do that. So that's what we want to share with everybody tonight, that it's not, you ain't crazy, you ain't out of your mind because you're like, I don't understand this. I don't want to go to church today. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You said, look, I'm just, but don't stay there. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we want to encourage somebody tonight. Not just my situation, but anything that you're going through, that it's an unexpected or it's an unexpected find the joy in it. Find the joy in it.
And I want to make sure in saying that how you handle, it's not to say, I love that you say it's not about being a super Christian. It's Christian. This is what you're choosing.
Right, exactly.
Because you know, if you start sinking, you know what that'll do for you. And I'm the same way. Everybody's gonna process things different. I know, same as me. If I get to sinking, and what I mean sinking, if I choose to shut up in the house and shelter myself, and now I'm not saying sometimes I don't want a day or two like that, but I also know we're smart enough to understand then that's where the enemy starts playing on other areas, and you got to be careful. And so that's why for us, for him, he's saying, no, I'm going to continue to choose God and just trust him through it, because he gave me the end. Not to say we're not going to feel things, not to say you don't process grief, because I believe all of that is necessary, and you do it the way you have to do it. Because trust me, through this, he's not saying he never cried about it or been sad or haven't woken up, because he's experienced all of that. But he's choosing not to stay there, and he has to continue to show up for what he believes God is calling him to do, because God already promised him that expected end. So it's like, well, if you're trusting me, then you got to trust me all the way. So don't stop there. You trusting me, but you're doing everything in opposite of trusting me. You know what I mean? So there's still something I'm requiring you to do through that. And then trusting, that means you got to still sometimes show up, or just show up in a certain way of really representing that joy and that trust in God and all that we say, you know, sometimes that he is to us. And so it's hard. It's not easy. But there's still, as you continue to go, he'll help cultivate that in us. But that comes with spending time and really getting ingrained in him and lost in his presence and all those things. But I think that's another thing, is how do people really, because I'm sure there's somebody out there like, yeah, y'all make it sound easy. No, I ain't trying to make it sound easy. It ain't easy. It takes time. Believe you me, it takes work. It takes time. But when you understand who you serve, one, that's some of the things you have to reflect on, is God and his promises. And understand that he's a creator and the ruler of all, you know, and that, you know, and this is where all those scriptures come to life, because we know we'll quote a time to this, a time to that, and we love Romans 8:28 for all, you know, for we know that all things work together for the good, and we can quote that. But when we are tested, all of that has to come back to play, because like the Lord's like, well, I thought you were speaking my word because you believed it. So now you're tested. Now either you prove it or you just, you know,
like, come on, walking Bible.
Come on. Come on. This is the time.
We can't, and we're not being insensitive, guys. I want you to understand, because I'm talking from a point of sharing how I dealt with it. If you're not there, is nothing wrong with that. That's all we're saying. We're not saying, one of the things that I'm trying to take away from the household of faith is making people feel condemned because they dealt with a dilemma to the size of their bandwidth. If you understand what I'm saying. You know, I'm wired this way. This is kind of my approach to stuff, period. You know, like I said, it's a secret sauce. You know, I pray, like Val said, I have my days. I literally had I remember when I had to go do the bone scan, and I don't know if y'all ever had a bone scan, but they put you on this table and this thing comes like this close to your face and you're laying down. And I don't even know in that moment, I don't know why, but it's like at that moment I had to catch myself because I started to unravel. And I was like, I don't even remember what was going through my brain and why that was just so pivotal for me. But in that moment, I really started to unravel, but I caught myself. Now, I want you to understand, I didn't pack and ignore what I was feeling. What I'm saying is I didn't allow myself to be led by my emotions.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But we're moving and progressing through things, and we give God the glory for that. What we want to talk about now is, because we want to leave on a high note, how do you cultivate a joyful mindset? How do we cultivate a joyful mindset? And we find that the word cultivation in itself, here's a big word, it's a process.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen overnight. It might not happen. Everybody's timetable of cultivating that is gonna be different.
Mhm.
It don't mean you less than a Christian, you love the Lord less. It's on a personal case-by-case basis that you allow yourself, your mental, the word of the Lord said we're transformed by what? The renewing of our mind. And I
Yeah.
think that's applicable in a lot of things that we deal with in life. We got to get it up here. We got to get it together up here and allow that process to complete.
Yeah.
Allow the
And
process
let
to
me
complete.
insert to just to make sure that we don't lose anybody in this, because his story was around like a health challenge. Mine was around dealing with, the loss of a loved one, so grief. But it can be unexpected when, you're laid off on your job,
Mhm.
when finances aren't meeting up,
Mhm.
when, and sometimes those things come at an unexpected time. So just think about that too. Is nothing is too small or too great, but in
Right.
moments where you have to look and be like, wow, this was not what I expect to happen, or I didn't prepare for this to happen.
Right.
And so how do you handle that and still try to find that peace, that comfort, that joy, and continue to trust God through
Mhm.
that? How do you do that? And I just want to be clear about, doesn't have to be, sometimes we think it's got to be something great drastic, but some of us are dealing
Yeah.
with unexpected things right in the midst of our
Right.
homes, our houses.
Mhm.
Some that got a note from a spouse that I don't want to be married anymore, and they walk
Right.
out
Yeah.
on you. Your child feeling some kind of way and you thought it was this. You know how we say, wow, I didn't expect that.
Mhm.
So what happens in the unexpected? Where are you? How do you find and put some joy to that? How do you even put
Mhm.
words to something like that, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
yeah, you're going to process the emotions, you're going to process the feeling, you're going to process it all. But the key here is what we're trying to get you to understand is don't stay stuck in it though.
Right. Yeah.
And what we call like spiral downward or sink. Because through it all, God's not unaware. He's not
Mhm.
unaware for anything that He's allowed for us to experience in our life. And especially if you're a believer, what do you know about Him?
Mhm.
And what has He done for you in these times of past, right? I know we all have testimonies of things that He has done. And so part of creating, cultivating that mindset, and it is a process. We talk about cultivation of something, is being able to go back and rely on what He's done, who He is, first of all, but what also He's capable of doing and what He's done in the past. Because there's something we can pull. You talked about
Mhm.
rambling through the trash, because sometimes it feels like a mess of a thing,
Mhm.
but I'm sure you can find some level of hope to remind you of just how amazing of a God He is. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Real quick, why don't you drop in the comment section some ways that you feel would help us practice a joyful mindset?
How
Let's
to
go ahead and
cultivate a
how to
joyful mind.
cultivate
Like,
a
what are some
joyful.
ways we
What are
can do
some
that?
ways we can do that? Drop them in the comment section. We love to hear your input. Like, what are some things? Maybe you went through something and you were victorious. Like Val said, it doesn't necessarily have to be my dilemma. I just chose to share that tonight because I thought it would be really um, an area that people could relate to
Mhm.
and gain strength from. But whatever the case is, drop in there some ways that you kind of go through it, or get through it rather. One of the things that I like to do, and it really falls in lines with Philippians, where it talks about whatever thing are pure, honest, beautiful, all this stuff. It
Oh,
says
thinking
any
on these
virtue,
things,
think on these
how
things.
you think.
And I know that that's a way that I practice joyful mindset. And I always share this a lot with people. It doesn't necessarily have to be church stuff. And I want y'all to hear me with balance. I'm not telling you not to pray and all that kind of stuff. But if you ever been in a place where your thing hit you hard, sometimes you don't even know how to pray.
Mm.
And what I mean, you can't make the words come,
Mhm.
because the devastation is so great, So maybe you need to just take a walk.
Mhm.
Maybe you need to just take a break. Maybe you need to go to an art museum. Whatever that looks like for you is like breaking away to regain that joyfulness. And what it does, it brings you back Christ-centered. Because anytime you are intoxicated by your emotions, you're going to respond irrationally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't want to be led by our emotions. We want to make sure we have a harness on those. And like the word tells us, be sober.
I was just gonna say, we talk about
Mhm,
intoxication, and I think about
mhm.
where you was going. How do we become sober in our thinking? Is that
Yeah.
where you're going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
How do
it.
we become sober in our thinking? Because
Mhm,
when trials and tribulations and turmoil and chaos hit,
mhm,
it's hard to think sound
mhm.
mindedness.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's hard to have a sound mind through it
Yeah.
because if you're not careful, because then it just starts going. And when your mind starts going, eventually it's going to turn into some actions
Mhm,
and behaviors
mhm.
that don't align.
Yeah.
And now we sprung way out.
And you respond
And then you be
outwardly.
like, what's his name?
Mhm.
Caught up? That
Who
that
did?
Usher. I wasn't supposed
Oh,
to. I don't know.
I
What
didn't
came to
listen
my
to
mind?
Usher.
You didn't listen to I'm s-
Shirley Caesar.
you know what? I know, but when I was thinking, that was where what came to
No,
mind, the
I
word
don't.
caught up. And you know me, I'm a
I don't
music
know.
fiend. So music, I love music. So I'm
No,
always
no.
thinking some song. I know I'm
Shirley
saved,
only.
sanctified. I don't care
Shirley
what you
only.
say.
Shirley
I'm just
only.
trying to tell you about us.
Shirley
No,
only.
you listen to Phyllis Hyman and all those people.
Shirley only.
Okay, but we don't want to switch
Yeah,
tracks. Let's stay
Phyllis.
focused.
Those I was comparing how she sound like Shirley.
Mm.
Yeah,
Phyllis sound like
yeah,
Shirley.
yeah.
Them sound like
She could.
deaconesses at the church. Phyllis and
Yeah,
Shirley.
I'm joking. But anyway,
No,
we're
we just
about at
teasing.
our time. We hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and we pray that it's been helpful to someone. We want to leave you with the CTA. Y'all know we always have some CTAs for everybody. Lady Valerie going to read that out to you, and it's on the screen because we want to hear from you. So this is our CTA.
Have a story of finding joy in an unexpected place. Do you have a story of finding joy in an unexpected place? If you do, will you share it with us on social media or send us an email you're going to post that in a minute. We love to hear from you and may feature your story in a future episode.
That's right. So we want to hear from you, and we love interaction engagement. I'll be putting the email on this. Also, be the end of the broadcast. But thank you guys for leaning and giving us your ear. Look, now we trying to keep this to an hour because trust me, we got a whole bunch of other stuff to say. But we want you to keep coming back. So we want to remind you, please, if you're watching on YouTube, help us, help us, help us. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, and remember to click that little bell to let you know when we're dropping and releasing new episodes. Our goal is to release new episodes every Monday at 7 o'clock. You can expect something to come out. So be a help to us. Share this with a friend. If you find value in this, share it with a friend. But our prayer is in the Clarity Lounge, we share, we conversate about all things life and godliness. That's what we want to do and really give a practical application of what it is and how we can stay in God's way, but live a practical life. Next week, we're going to be talking about embracing the process of change. Now, that's a serious one because embracing the
Yeah.
process of change, that can hit real different and change anywhere, not just companies, families. When we've been routine is one. I thought you want to
No,
give
we
people
might need to get okay. We're gonna see. I think we might need some help with that. Tanya Vale
Tanya Bell.
out
Yeah,
of
we
the
calling you out. Yeah,
Carolinas. Where you at? Because I don't know anybody who can talk change greater than
yeah.
her.
We need
She
some
is a
help with
woman
this
of
change.
God. We are summoning. I ain't gonna say summoning. That sounds kind of chanty-ish, but I'm calling you out.
No, make it churchy.
Church.
We're giving you a clarion call.
A clarion
let's say that
call.
clarion
Yeah.
call. Hika basata.
We're gonna pray.
We're
And then we're
that.
gonna do it. We gotta pray about it.
We'll pray about all
We're
that
gonna
stuff.
pray about it.
Look, when we get it, send the email, just say yes or no. Yeah. We would like to have you come and share your expertise in a change agent. That's what I'm gonna call it, a change agent.
That's what, she definitely on levels, not just in the professional, in the prophetic as well, and in this,
And sometimes change has a way of causing stagnation because it's a fear of the unknown. You know what I'm saying? When things change abruptly, and we'll talk about this later, but just appetizer what you can expect. Valerie's makeup is such that change is very challenging for her.
Used to be.
It used to be. You
I've
want to throw my wife
manage.
off? Change something up. And there's some people that I know that in our inner circle are like that. Used to be.
I'm more flexible to change. I understand it now.
But it's not a bad thing.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What I'm saying, I understand it now.
You see that, Mitch Vicky, we fight.
He's trying to keep because he's trying to keep that on me. I'm trying to tell you that was
okay.
That is now.
Hey, okay.
I didn't handle. I didn't know how to
deliver.
I have been delivered, set free, so I'm not going back.
Not going back.
I have a flexibility to change. I understand change, and I know why it's necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was points that I didn't quite get it, and because I'm a very systematic, methodical person, change was tough because if you tell me it's A, B, C, and D, you can't switch to Z, E, and X and go in different orders. But I understand now, and so I 100% get it. But it can still be challenging for others. I'm not saying because there's certain things now.
Yeah, no, I
can't be hard about changing, but
it's good.
And one thing for me, as long as the change is communicated properly, I can definitely deal better with it anyway. But I understand it greater. But back then, yeah, you're right. I didn't handle change well at all.
We would have to put up our dukes
because he'll go one way and then the whole plan just switch. And I'm like, well, no.
But it's funny, and we're getting in discussion. But this is just a sneak peek because I'm a person that I'm colorful in my lines. If you see my charts, they go like this, like spaghettis and noodles. And I understand that, whereas hers is all precise and like that. Mine's not like that. My organization skills are, so it's so funny that we complement one another the way we do, because my organization skills, and it's not that they're bad, they work for me, but because of her style, they'll give her brain an overload. But I'm like, put that up there, this and the other, But anywho,
that's all. Yeah, you going into 2 and 3 different topics.
It's a bunch of. But y'all tune in. Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you coming in the Clarity Lounge, and we hope that something has been said or done to give you a clear perception, view about finding joy in the unexpected.
So why don't you close out with like a little something? What's a good song with joy in it that uses the word joy?
I get joy when I think about.
I feel like I need to get Jesus. I didn't say it could be Jesus, but I'm like, why you gotta do your voice like that?
Because you can't sing that song no other way.
I feel like I need to pull out a tambourine.
I don't know. The joy song, joy in pain. That's tribute to Frankie Beverly.
You going somewhere? Oh, yes.
Yeah, but we can pay. And this is another thing. Is it homage or homage?
Homage?
I hear people say homage or homage. I'm saying, okay.
Well, is it advertisement or advertisement? I've heard both.
Okay, this some stuff. Is it egg or egg? It's like all this stuff. We've been saying these things for real, and it's like for a long time, and then people come up with these things like Brittany versus Brittany. I don't know, Renee. All this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I just threw that out there because y'all know that's just me. That's our process.
How do you say Burberry?
Yeah, Burberry versus Burberry.
There is a proper way to say
it is of all those names, but our colorful people, we just gotta say how we want to, like Walmart.
No, that's not.
But
no.
Y'all, Walmart's with
no. When you start adding S's, I think that's kind of showing a little bit of age.
Walmart,
yeah, because that's different.
Now here's one
all together wrong.
Y'all, we gotta go.
Ain't
we
no
get
K
ready to go.
No Walmart.
But I'm gonna say this. Sean, help us out. JCPenney, or is it JCPenney's? I think it was pennies.
We add S's to everything.
No, but I think back in the day it was pennies. I'm gonna look that up.
Is it R or Ara?
QRS. It's QRS. It depends on where you live. Is it street or street? What is it? Watermelon versus watermelon.
Okay,
all right, Y'all have a good night. Thanks again for tuning in. Remember to share with a friend, and remember, click that subscribe button. Y'all